9:35 here on the big one, 700 WLW, the Rocky Boiman Show. Now, I mistakenly said before the break the Buckeyes were ranked 4. That was a brain fart. Of course, they're ranked 5. Not quite yet in the top 4 of the college football playoff. But nevertheless, I want to bring on our good buddy Dave Biddle of Bucknuts to talk a little Buckeyes and what they've done here to this date and where they may be heading. He joins us right now. Dave, how are you, buddy?
Rocky, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. First of all, you hit it out of the park with that name, man. Bucknuts. I mean, I can't say it without smiling. You know what I mean? It's a good name. I like it.
I get a lot of that, and you know, we remind people it's not a porn site; it's an Ohio State Buckeye football website. So you have to make that clarification. But yeah, we get that a lot. It is kind of a funny name.
Absolutely. So Dave, obviously you know this story very well. Ohio State this year in the draft. They had, 12 players drafted, 10 in the first 3 rounds. They go into the season. I remember Phil Steele had them ranked the number 128th least experienced team. That's dead last in college football. The sky's falling. All of our players are gone. And what have they done? They've looked pretty much how they normally look, which is somewhat dominating, other than the little hiccup against Penn State there. Seemed to be back on track. Had they just absolutely demolished number 10 ranked Nebraska here this past week. So, Dave, from your perspective, as you've seen this team from the offseason and now up to this point, they just seem to keep reloading. Is this a team that you think can really, really push on, or do they still have some deficiencies because of their youth?
I think they can, be a legitimate national championship contender, but it's been an up and down season, Rocky. As you mentioned, they had so many question marks coming into the season because of their youth and inexperience. Losing all those guys to the NFL, losing even seniors that were good players that didn't make it in the NFL, and just a record amount of NFL draft picks. We're talking about 3, 10 in the first 3 rounds and 12 in the first 4 rounds. So they had all those questions coming into the year, and then they looked like a juggernaut early. They blow out Bowling Green the first week. They set a school record for total yards in that game with 776, but that was fool's gold because Bowling Green was MAC champs last year, and now they're one of the worst teams in all of FBS, as you know, this year. So that was fool's gold. And I would argue the Oklahoma blowout win in Norman, even though as impressive as that is, anytime you go into Norman, Oklahoma, and you win, 45-24, that's impressive. And they really took a knee there at the end. They could have made it 52-24. Even that game, I say a little bit of fool's gold. Not for Ohio State's defense. The defense played great, but Oklahoma's defense is awful. So for Ohio State's offense, might have been a little fool's gold because then they went in the funk. They really struggled in October. Yeah. And now they're seeing that it seems like they're coming out of it now, Rocky. They're they everything came together for them in that Nebraska game. The downfield passing game has really been the problem for the offense, and the offensive line has not played well at times. That's really why they lost to Penn State. They got that short up against Nebraska. We'll see if that continues because I think it's all going to come down to Ohio State, Michigan, and Columbus, November 26th. I think the winner is going to be Big Ten East champs. I know there's some other scenarios that could play out, like if Michigan loses this week at Iowa, which I don't think is going to happen. If Ohio State and Penn State finish in a tie, Penn State would go to the Big Ten championship game. But I think it's going to be a 3-way tie, and I think Ohio State's going to end up going to the Big East championship.
Well, I think you're right too. But one of the things you mentioned was JT Barrett. Now he's, I watch him on tape this week. Has complete control of the offense. Runs well. I think they run him too much, to be honest. I worry about him getting hurt. But complete command of the offense. The only thing he really doesn't seem to do well, Dave, is throw that deep ball. Now, you've watched him ever since, 2 years ago and all his games this year. Why is that, Dave? Why is he a guy who's so accurate on some of the, short and intermediate passes when it comes to some of those deep down shots? What is that? What's lacking in his game?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think, it's just lack of arm strength, and then he does not have a very quick release. So I think by the time he's, very good about going through his checks, but by the time, he sees that open receiver late, he's not able to just be a quick release guy and fire it out of there. And then every once in a while, when you're ready to give up on him as a deep ball throw, he'll put one right in there. But that's a huge concern, as you mentioned, even going back to his redshirt freshman year 2 years ago when he finished 5th for the Heisman, broke his ankle against Michigan in the final regular season game and still finished 5th for the Heisman that year. It was still an issue that year. He had a guy named Devin Smith who was a second-round pick who ended up making him look really good at times and made Cardale Jones look good when he took over. But, yeah, I think it's a combination of those two things. And, And I want to throw this in there too. I don't think they take enough deep shots. There's been times when they'll throw one and he'll miss and he'll look bad on it, and then they'll just go away from it. But at least against Nebraska, they kept at it, and even the intermediate passing game has not been where it's needed to be. But they've made strides in that area. But yeah, you're right. It's just the downfield passing attack for Ohio State has been lackluster throughout the season.
Our buddy Dave Biddle joined us on the program. He runs the website Bucknuts. I've been going to it all week. I'm going to steal everything I can from you, Dave. Just know that for my game this weekend. You mentioned just some of the other explosive things that happened for Ohio State this past weekend. The biggest one, obviously, has got to be Curtis Samuel, a guy if you haven't watched Ohio State and you're looking for an exciting player, you compare him to Percy Harvin, right? I mean, he's the kind of guy that does everything. He gets the ball in a jet sweep. You can hand it to him up the middle. You can hit him on a bomb down the sideline. This guy does everything. Why is it, though, Dave, that he just now seems to be this last week really, really coming on? Why have they kind of kept this a secret?
Yeah, he's having a tremendous year, Rocky. He's the guy that Urban Meyer, the man that recruited you to Notre Dame, as I love seeing that picture that you put on there. Urban Meyer, I love that. Urban Meyer continues to compare him to Percy Harvin, and he even made the comment, the year that Curtis Samuel's having this year is better than anything Percy Harvin did at Florida. And now Percy Harvin's overall career was better. Let's say Curtis Samuel leaves after this year. They both play 3 years in college because Percy played a lot more as a freshman and sophomore. But I will say this, Curtis Samuel, even as a freshman and sophomore, was excellent, and he was the backup running back to Ezekiel Elliott. When Curtis Samuel was a true freshman, when Ohio State won the national championship, and he was really good as a true freshman. Then last year they moved him to H-back, but they still had Braxton Miller. So he just had older guys in front of him that were really good. He's finally getting a chance to break out. He is their best player on offense, even though J.T. Barrett might be the most important player because of the quarterback position is the most important position on the field. But Curtis Samuel is their best player. Now they're going to move him to punt returner, and I love that. And I don't think it's a big injury risk. We can all think of there's exceptions, but I've crunched the numbers a little bit. It's been a long time since Ohio State's even had a punt returner get hurt while returning a punt. I think we all think, it's this real dangerous play. It might be for some of the other guys involved. For the actual punt returner, it's very rare to see the punt returner get hurt. Again, in football, you can get hurt on any play, but I think the reason I bring that up, Rocky, is you have some Ohio State fans saying he's too valuable to the offense. Why are they going to risk him returning punts? My rebuttal to that is, it's too bad Michigan didn't have that point of view when Desmond Howard was returning punts for touchdowns against Ohio State, or Charles Woodson was returning punts for touchdowns against Ohio State. Or
right.
It's too bad for Michigan that Ohio State didn't have that point of view when Ted Ginn was returning punts for touchdowns. So I think you got to play to win, and that's what they're doing with Curtis Samuel. They're going to make him their punt returner, and furthermore, Dontre Wilson was just bad in that role. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Samuel can do as the punt returner this week.
Well, and to continue your Michigan example here, Jabril Peppers. I mean, they do everything with him at Michigan. I mean, Harbaugh's not saying, well, we got to worry about him getting hurt. He's playing offense, defense, and special teams. If you got a great player I'm talking a really, really good player, you put him on the field because that's what you do. And Urban Meyer's smart like that. So you can worry about people getting hurt all day. People can get hurt walking out of the locker room and slip and fall. You know what I mean? Like you got a good one, put them in the game, man. Change that game any way you can. Dave, I want to switch to defense, but lastly, before we leave the offense. Obviously Ezekiel Elliott and what he brought from a downhill perspective and in between the tackles and tough. I don't think Weber's quite given that. So from your perspective, if you look at this offense compared to, say, the offense that won the national championship a couple of years ago, is it lacking in your opinion? Can it still develop? Can it get to that level, or what do you think?
It's not going to get to that level. And Mike Weber's very good. He's only a redshirt freshman, and it's just, I warned people, Ezekiel Elliott wasn't just very good. Everybody knows he's very good. He was a once-in-a-generation back at Ohio State. I said that he was better than Eddie George, and I love Eddie George. It's almost sacrilegious to say that, but I'm telling, and it's bearing out with what we're seeing in the NFL. Ezekiel Elliott's a guy that can take a play that maybe should be, a negative yardage play and turn it into a 10-yard gain, or a play that should be, a 10-yard gain and turn it into a 50-yard gain and touchdown. He's just so unbelievably good, and he really put Ohio State on his back for when they won the national title 2 years ago. And we're seeing what he's doing, leading the NFL in rushing right now. So it's such a high bar. I think Mike Weber can get to that Carlos Hyde level, which is still a very high level. Carlos Hyde was excellent. I mean, he kept Ezekiel Elliott on the bench when Zeke was a true freshman. I think he can get to that level eventually, but not this year. And and Mike Weber, as you know, is dealing with a sprained AC joint just like Carlos Hyde is. I don't think it's as serious as Carlos Hyde's injury. Anybody who plays fantasy football knows that Carlos Hyde's been out for a while, and it's been a little frustrating. But that's something to keep an eye on this week. I think you're going to see a lot more of true freshman Demario McCall as the backup running back. They're going to use Curtis Samuel as the running back. Even Dontre Wilson, who's more of a wide receiver, they're going to put him back there and use him as a running back. So I think they want to save Mike Weber. Mike Weber, when we talked to him yesterday, Rocky said, quote, "I'm in a lot of pain." And for a player to admit that, you have a lot of Ohio State fans saying, "Why are you admitting that and telling your opponent that, hey, take a shot at my shoulder here?" He admits he's in a lot of pain. So I think they're going to play him this week against Maryland, but I think his reps will be limited.
Right. If they light it up like they did last week, he'll probably won't make it past the first quarter. Dave Biddle from Bucknuts joining us. Switch over to defense, and a guy that, and Dave, I don't get to watch every Ohio State game, obviously, because I'm doing other games and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, you flip on the Ohio State film and watch their defense. Number 24, Malik Hooker, he just absolutely jumps off the page. He's a young guy, but I mean, talk about him. It seems like this guy, I won't say came out of nowhere. I know he did some special teams and stuff last year, but I mean, has he been? I watched 3 games for my game prep. Has he been this impressive the whole year, or is it just recently? What's the deal with this guy?
He's been amazing. I mean, he's been one of the best safeties to come through Ohio State, and they've had a lot of good safeties come through in recent memory, and he did kind of come out of nowhere. Now, if you talk to the coaches last year when he played as a redshirt freshman, and even just watching the games, he looked good on special teams, and the coaches said, watch out for this guy next year. But Tyvis Powell, to me, was not very good last year. He went undrafted. He did make the Seahawks roster, but I was thinking, if Malik Hooker's really that good, how is he not taking Tyvis Powell's job away? Because Tyvis Powell just was the weak link on that defense last year, and but you see what happened. I mean, Malik Hooker came into this year. He has everything you want in a safety, Rocky. He's going to be a guy that really is going to be. It's almost like the equivalent of a one and done in basketball, because this is going to be his only year starting at Ohio State. He's a third-year sophomore. He's going to go early. Everybody's projecting him as a number 1 pick, and he has the total package. He
reminds me of Ed Reed. I played in the league during when Ed Reed was playing, and Ed Reed had that thing where he would see me. He just roamed the middle of the field. When the ball was in the air, he just had incredible ability to be around it, A, and B, just like track it down. It's like he's like, there he is. And here he comes out of nowhere in the same way Ed Reed did. And the other thing about it, too, is, that kind of thing where it's like you look, oh my God, he's totally in the wrong position here. But it's like he has an instinct where he knows the ball is going there. You know what I mean? It's like, what is he seeing? But he kind of has it.
Absolutely, much like Ed Reed, that's a great comparison. He once he gets the ball in his hands, and he's got, he's got like four pick sixes now in the season to lead college football. He looks like not just a good offensive player, he looks like a great offensive player when he has the ball in his hands. And Urban Meyer said he probably is a guy that can play offense, but they're just using him on defense now. And as you mentioned, he just has the total package. He's a ball hawk, but he's also got to come up, and he's not afraid to pop you. And he's got nice size for a safety at 6'2", 205. He's got all kinds of speed. He's a tremendous player, and they have a couple other guys that are coming on. True freshman Nick Bosa's getting a lot more playing time. He's really coming on, but I think Raekwon McMillan's actually a little overrated as their middle linebacker.
I thought the same thing. I watched 17. I forgot 17's name.
Jerome Baker is their best linebacker.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. See, I know a little bit about football. I think
a lot about football. I know a lot about football.
Well, I'll tell you, because I watched McMillan, and I think he's good size. He's not too big, but he's about 240 and all that. But and he can run. He's athletic, but I don't think he has like those like linebacker instincts. You know what I mean? Where he knows where the play's going, that kind of thing. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. You're completely on point. He struggles to get off blocks. His instincts aren't what you want. And he is a guy that, he's a great kid. He's a guy that kind of is living on his, recruiting hype. He was the number 1 linebacker recruit in the country, number 1 ranked linebacker recruit in the country. He's out of Georgia, 5-star recruit, and played on the national championship team as a true freshman, even though he wasn't a starter, but played a lot as a backup, and then took over last year as a sophomore, had a bunch of tackles, and was a Butkus finalist. But sometimes tackles can be the most overrated side of football, because you can be 10 yards down the field and get run over. Yeah. and you get credited for a tackle because the guy falls down, and he's just, he is overrated. He's a good kid, but he's very overrated. You're right. Jerome Baker is the best linebacker on this team, and he's a sophomore. And the only reason he's starting is because a kid named Dante Booker, who was Ohio's Mr. Football in 2013 at Akron St. Vincent St. Mary. He's a junior. He got hurt in the season opener against Bowling Green. They put sophomore Jerome Baker in there. He's from Cleveland Benedictine. He originally committed to Florida, flipped to Ohio State. He has been a stud. He's going to be, and they have him back next year, so he can't go pro after this year. He's only a true sophomore. He's going to be he'll be a legit Butkus finalist next year probably.
Yeah, he's a good player. Dave, look, man, I could talk all night with this. This has been great information, but we got to run. I appreciate your time, and we'll do this again. And by the way, I know I owe you a picture in Ohio State gear. I'm a man of my word. I haven't delivered on that yet after our Notre Dame Ohio State bet, but I will get that to you. I promise.
I appreciate that, man. And thanks for having me on the show. Good talking to you as always.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it again here soon in a couple weeks. All right.
Cool, man. Enjoy the game.
Thanks, partner. Appreciate it. Dave Biddle from Bucknuts joining us on the program. Let's take a break. Back with more 700 WLW.